You ever watch 15 tons of wet concrete wipe out 100 years of family history before you've even had your second sip of coffee? Because I have. 6:30 in the damn morning, fog still hanging over Willow Creek, and I'm standing there in my work boots watching a cement mixer grind across my grandfather's stone bridge, stones groaning like old bones, and then bam crack splash. Whole center span just folds in on itself and disappears into the water. And there she is, Marjorie Whitman, Queen of Millbrook Heights, white blazer spotless as a hospital sheet, laughing. "Oops," she says, like someone just dropped a wine glass. "Those old rocks weren't built for real trucks, honey." Yeah, that happened. What she didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd been waiting for that exact sound for months. But let me back up a sec. My name's Roman Kellerman. 52. Retired civil engineer. I spent 3 decades calculating loads and stress tolerances for bridges and municipal buildings across Pennsylvania. When I retired, I came back to the 12 acres my grandfather left me, his slice of creek, woods, and stubborn old craftsmanship, including that stone bridge he built in 1923 with his own hands. Every morning I'd walk out there with my coffee, run my palm over stones still cool from the night, feel the grooves where his chisel had bitten in. Blackbirds chattered in the cattails, creek water slipping over rock like quiet applause. The air smelled like wet leaves and sawdust drifting from my workshop in Granddad's old barn. Peace, you know what I mean? Not flashy, just steady. Here's the thing about that bridge. It was designed for 15 tons max. That was generous back in 1923. Tractors, hay wagons, Model TS. Not modern cement mixers that weigh more than a small apartment complex. The blueprints still hang in my shop. Yellowed paper, slide rule math penciled neat as scripture. And there's only one way in or out of my land, that bridge. Every other direction is swamp or protected wetland. If you want my property, you cross those stones. 3 years ago, Millbrook Heights wrapped itself around my acreage like expensive ivy. Gated community. Retirees, tidy lawns, mailboxes that match like they came from a catalog. Most of the folks are decent, buy my custom furniture, appreciate old wood and older stories. But then came Hurricane Marjorie. Blonde bob cut sharp enough to slice a bagel. BMW with vanity plates. Moved in, and within 6 months she was HOA president. Improving property values became her religion. Her first letter to me? A violation notice saying my grandfather's barn was an aesthetic inconsistency and should be painted beige to align with community standards. Beige. That barn survived 2 world wars and 3 recessions, and she wanted it beige. I tried explaining it was historically registered, original timber frame, part of the township's early infrastructure. She smiled like I'd just confessed to collecting snakes. "Roman," she said, "maybe you'd be happier somewhere more rustic." Rustic? Like it was a medical condition. At first it was petty, mailbox height complaints, grass length measurements, noise violations because my planer ran past 5 p.m. But then investors started touring her community. And I overheard something one afternoon, while sanding a table near the property line. Phase 2. Luxury condos. Where my barn stood. That's when it clicked. The bridge wasn't just inconvenient to her, it was in the way. Enter Derek, her nephew, owner of Pinnacle Construction. Big guy. Neck like a tree trunk. Business ethics like a payday lender. Suddenly, Derek's trucks started using my bridge as a temporary access route to build the HOA's new clubhouse. First time I saw that cement mixer rolling toward me, I honestly thought it was a mistake. I stepped out, apron still on, coffee in hand. "Excuse me. This is private property. Weight limit posted." Derek didn't even look down from his cab. "Marjorie cleared it. Got a problem, take it up with her." And there she was, watching. That first pass, I heard the stones shift. A low grinding sound that sat in my gut. Now, engineers don't panic. We observe. So I observed. Cameras went up. Motion sensors. Logbooks. I measured axle loads with borrowed portable scales from an old colleague. Posted limit, 15 tons. Derek's trucks? 35. Sometimes 40. 2.5 times design load. Every crack documented. Every loose stone photographed. Dates, timestamps, weather conditions. I even set vibration monitors in my workshop. One morning, a bookcase I'd spent 3 months crafting rattled apart when a truck hit mid-span. You ever watch your work literally shake itself to pieces? Makes your chest tight. I sent cease and desist letters, polite, lawyer drafted. Derek tossed his copy into his truck without opening it. Marjorie ran straight to the neighborhood Facebook group accusing me of obstructing community progress. Neighbors started stopping by quietly. Agnes, retired librarian, whispered, "She's dangerous." Tyler and Beth, young couple with twins, said they supported me but couldn't risk retaliation. Meanwhile, the trucks kept rolling. 7 a.m. sharp. Like clockwork. Then Derek got creative. Midnight runs. Scraped my fence. Knocked over my mailbox. Anonymous calls to my clients claiming safety violations in my shop. Fake pizza deliveries at 2 a.m. Code enforcement showed up twice after tips. Psychological warfare, you know what I mean? Death by 1,000 inconveniences. Marjorie escalated further. Emergency HOA meeting. Talk of eminent domain under some obscure Pennsylvania statute. She stood in front of a PowerPoint, traffic flow charts glowing behind her, talking about greater good and community benefit. Here's the twist though. A local reporter named Sarah had slipped into the back row. Quiet. Recording everything. And while they were debating legal maneuvers, I was down in the county archives digging through dusty permit files because insomnia is a hell of a research assistant. That's when I found it. Granddad's original 1923 permit included utility corridors, water lines, electrical conduit, internet fiber that had been upgraded over decades, all routed under that bridge. 47 homes depended on infrastructure crossing my property. Without that bridge, no utilities. And here's the part that made my stomach drop. Marjorie had already promised investors guaranteed access through my land for Phase 2. Financial projections based on infrastructure she didn't legally control. That's not just HOA drama. That's securities fraud territory. I called Dr. Wong, structural engineer friend from my old firm. She installed microsensors across the span, tracking stress shifts in real time. "Roman," she said quietly, staring at the data, "at this rate 6 to 8 weeks before failure. We calculated the threshold load that would trigger catastrophic collapse. So I waited. Not passively, I fortified everything else. Backup generators, secondary water lines, alarms connected to county emergency services, legal team on standby, historical society notified. Because when that bridge went, I wanted the story airtight. And then that morning came. Fog low over the creek. Derek's cement mixer rumbling toward me. Marjorie following in her BMW, like she was attending a parade. I stood off to the side, hands in my pockets. The truck hit midspan. There was this deep, hollow pop, like a gunshot underwater. Then the center stones sheared off exactly where Dr. Wong predicted. Concrete, steel, and ego dropped straight into Willow Creek. Utilities cut instantly. Alarm screaming. Diesel smoke curling into the morning air. Derek climbed out covered in wet cement up to his knees, cursing like he'd just discovered gravity. Marjorie's face, I swear, went through denial, anger, bargaining, grief, all in under 60 seconds. Within 10 minutes, county officials, press, neighbors were lining the banks. Sarah, the reporter, already had footage uploaded. I handed Inspector Bradley 3 months of documentation in a neat binder. He flipped through pages, hands actually shaking. "Mr. Kellerman, this is the most thorough case file I've ever seen." Then the county commissioner arrived. Laid it out plain, emergency rerouting utilities, $400,000, 18 months minimum. Insurance investigators uncovered Derek's falsified weight reports, claiming 15-ton loads on federal transport documents. Fraud. Prison-level fraud. Marjorie's financial guarantees to investors? Based on misrepresented asset access. Civil suits piled up fast. Within 6 months, Pinnacle Construction folded. Derek pled guilty to federal fraud charges. Marjorie filed bankruptcy. Her BMW got towed in broad daylight. I won't lie, that was a little satisfying. The HOA collapsed and reformed under new leadership. Guess who they elected president? Agnes. First order of business, formal apology. Second, vote to rebuild my bridge at HOA expense, using my grandfather's original design reinforced with modern load ratings. They even held a little ceremony when it reopened. Kids throwing pebbles into the creek. Blackbirds louder than ever. My furniture business? Orders tripled after the story went viral. People love an underdog who brings receipts. But here's the part that matters most. Every morning now, I walk out with my coffee, place my hand on that cool stone, stronger than it's ever been, and listen to Willow Creek moving like it always has. Same blackbirds. Same scent of wet earth. The bridge stands. Granddad's math still holds. Bullies bank on intimidation. They count on you folding before the paperwork stacks up. They assume history is fragile. But history, when it's documented and defended, that's a different animal. So here's what I keep thinking about. Where's the line between community progress and straight-up theft? When does greater good become a fancy phrase for taking what isn't yours? And if someone keeps crossing your bridge long enough, does that ever make it theirs? I stood my ground. Some people still say I cost the neighborhood money. Others say I saved it from something worse. What would you have done? Have you ever had to fight for something everyone else thought was expendable? Ever had to prove you weren't the villain just for protecting what's yours? Drop your story. I read every one. Because if there's one thing I learned from all this, justice isn't loud at first, it's patient. And sometimes it arrives right on schedule with a splash.